My college roommate asked to borrow a heating pad. I saw her clutching her stomach, shivering, and quickly gave it to her. She placed the heating pad on her lower abdomen. As a result, that evening, she was bleeding between her legs and was taken to the hospital. I just found out she's been pregnant for a month. The child was scalded by a heating pad and had a miscarriage. She has hated me ever since. Her boyfriend with dyed hair, seeking revenge, waited outside the school gate and stabbed me to death. Opening my eyes again, I returned to the day my roommate asked to borrow a heating pad. The cold wind outside the dormitory crept into my sleeves, making me shiver from the chill. My roommate, Felicity, clutching her lower abdomen with lips pale from the cold, asked me, can you lend me 2 heating pads? The moment I saw her face clearly, I let out a startled cry. I wasn't frightened by her face, which was frozen to a purplish hue, but rather because just moments before, I had died under the chaotic slashes of her boyfriend's knife. The pain of the knife cutting into bone until the blade dulled still lingered. Now, I had actually been reborn back in the dormitory. In my previous life, my roommate Felicity, who usually spoke to me with cold indifference, had clutched her abdomen just like this, shivering and breaking out in cold sweat, asking to borrow a heating pad. If it weren't for the fact that there were only the 2 of us in the dorm, she wouldn't have chosen to speak to me. I mistakenly thought she was having period cramps. In such moments, even if it's the person you dislike the most, you'd gladly offer a heating pad. I took out a heating pad from the drawer and handed it to Felicity. Little did I know that this simple act would cost me my life. In my previous life, after applying the heating pad, Felicity fell asleep at her desk. The sky outside the dormitory gradually darkened. My roommate Rose walked back carrying takeout. She ignored me and went straight to Felicity, who was sleeping, patting her on the shoulder and reminding her, "Felicity, your boyfriend is waiting for you outside. Why are you still sleeping here?" Felicity, who had been woken up, had just lifted her head when her legs gave way, and she fell off the stool, landing squarely on her bottom. Rose instinctively gasped in surprise. Before she could react, she saw Felicity clutching her lower abdomen and staggering toward the bathroom. Rose followed closely behind, and the 2 of them did not come out of the restroom for a long time. It wasn't until an hour later, when the siren of an ambulance blared at the entrance of the girls' dormitory, that Felicity was finally helped out by Rose. By then, Felicity's pants were completely soaked in blood. She could only muster her last bit of consciousness, leaning on Rose as she was half dragged out the door. I thought it was just a simple case of excessive bleeding from menstrual cramps. Felicity and Rose had been in the hospital for 3 days. As soon as they arrived, rumors gradually spread around the school that someone in the girls' dormitory had suddenly started bleeding from both legs while using the toilet, leading to a miscarriage. Looking at the 2 empty beds in the dormitory, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of panic. After finishing the day's classes, I prepared to visit Felicity at the hospital. Just as I stepped out of the school gate, Felicity's boyfriend with dyed yellow hair charged at me with a dagger. He knocked me down, pinned me beneath him, and viciously stabbed me over 30 times. Blood flooded my vision. My ears were filled with the screams of onlookers and Felicity's boyfriend's words, "Give me back my child. If you hadn't lent her the heating pad, my child wouldn't have been burned. My little Felicity wouldn't have had a miscarriage. I worked so hard to get her pregnant, and it's all been ruined by you. You bitch." Sharp blades continuously pierced holes in my body, drawing blood. I didn't have time to open my mouth to explain, and even with all my strength, I only struggled for 3 seconds. I could only lie on the cold floor, letting the blood flow from my body, quietly waiting for life to fade away. Finally, I was stabbed 37 times and bled to death. My death covered up the fact that Felicity had an abortion at school. The school chose to remain silent about my death, not only refusing all interviews with reporters but also spreading rumors that the girl had spent too much money, leading to a jealous ex-boyfriend seeking revenge in a crime of passion. My parents, who had worked tirelessly to raise me, stood at the school gate with my memorial photo for a month. I could only watch helplessly as their hair turned white, enduring pressure from the school and suffering from online harassment by netizens. White wreaths filled the entrance of my home. While Felicity's blonde boyfriend was sent abroad by his powerful mother, escaping scot-free, I gritted my teeth in anger but could do nothing about it. Seeing Felicity's face again, I couldn't help but shiver, wrapping my arms around myself and shaking my head repeatedly as I refused. "I won't lend it." Felicity's mouth twitched, she rolled her eyes at me, then clutched her stomach and retreated. Rose came back carrying takeout and immediately spotted Felicity's pale face. Quickly stepping forward to ask anxiously, "Felicity, what's wrong with you?" Felicity, in so much pain that only a faint breath remained, still managed to grit her teeth and complain, "It's that time of the month, and my stomach hurts. I wanted to borrow a heating pad, but it was such a hassle. Some people are just petty and narrow-minded." As she spoke, she glanced in my direction. Upon hearing this, Rose's expression changed. Without a second thought, she dropped the takeout in her hand and walked straight up to me, demanding, "You didn't lend her a heating pad?" Her reaction was so intense, as if something earth-shattering had happened. Seeing my stunned expression, Rose quickly released her grip on my shoulders and muttered to herself, "You always have heating pads in your drawer. We're roommates, after all. Felicity is in so much pain, and you're just standing by, watching coldly. Are you even human, even back when we used to hang out? You loved to pretend, acting all innocent like a little white lotus. Can't even be bothered to pretend anymore." Rose grew more and more impassioned as she spoke, crossing her arms and pointing at me with an air of superiority. I glanced at the box in the drawer, specifically for storing heating pads, and snorted coldly, "It's laughable, really. The reason I always kept heating pads in the drawer was to help my former good friend, Rose. In this dormitory, besides the three of us, there is also a girl who is completely dedicated to her studies and seems almost invisible, Erica. When she first started school, Rose was a girl who had just been admitted from a remote mountainous area. She carried 2 woven plastic bags and a red plastic bag filled with local specialties from her hometown. Her face, tanned with a reddish hue, wore a shy smile. Rose was the last to arrive at the dormitory. She stood awkwardly by the bed, nervously rubbing the hem of her clothes. Then, as if gathering immense courage, she took out the specialties from the red plastic bag and handed them to each of us, one by one. I took it and then handed her the pairs I had bought in the afternoon. When Rose walked over to Felicity, who was dressed in designer brands, Felicity's delicate and petite face instantly filled with undisguised disdain and disgust. She clicked her tongue in complaint, saying, "Hurry up and get that dirty bag away from me. It's disgusting." Rose's hand hung in midair as she stood there awkwardly. "It's not right to give, nor to receive." Seeing this, I walked over to Rose and patted her shoulder gently. "This pear is really sweet. Come on, let's go wash the fruit and eat." After settling in at the start of the semester, we quickly welcomed the first day of military training. Under the scorching sun, everyone's resentment was visibly rising. During the formation run, the crowd around Rose gradually began to distance themselves. Everyone tacitly formed a circle around her. Rose looked left and right, noticing the strange gazes from those around her. She tilted her head to sniff her collar, beads of sweat clinging to her hair. Her steps grew smaller and smaller, and her expression turned increasingly unpleasant. I quickly ran forward, linking arms with Rose, and we veered off the track toward the restroom. Rose also realized something at that moment. She instinctively pulled her clothes down, lowered her head, bit her lip, and whispered to me, "Thank you." After returning to the dorm to change my pants, I accompanied Rose to the convenience store. Rose went ahead to pay for the sanitary pads, and I gave her the heating patches I had bought along the way. Rose stood frozen in place, looking at me with a mix of awkwardness and curiosity as she asked, "What is this?" "It's a heating pad. Don't you get menstrual cramps? I always use this when I'm in pain." As soon as I said this, I watched as Rose's eyes quickly welled up with tears. She pursed her lips, but in the end, she couldn't hold back and began to sob right where she stood. Her hands covered her face, and between her trembling sobs, she managed to piece together a sentence, "Every time I get my period, it hurts so much. I always grit my teeth and endure it on my own." Rose stood in the shadows, and I froze in place, staring at her, momentarily speechless, unsure how to offer comfort. The progress of society and the widespread availability of sanitary pads had made me forget that there were still girls in this world who couldn't easily manage their menstrual pain. I could only silently grab an extra box of heating patches and place it on the checkout counter. Rose quickly composed herself, wiping away her tears and offering an apologetic smile for her sudden emotional outburst. Then she took the initiative to link her arm with mine. From that day on, Rose and I became inseparable, and in my drawer, I also set aside a special storage box to keep heating pads on hand. At that time, I was still happy that I had helped a girl. It never occurred to me that giving kindness to the wrong person could eventually backfire on oneself. Rose gradually changed without even realizing it. After the freshman military training, Felicity quickly became popular in college. Thanks to her petite and delicate appearance and stylish, glamorous outfits, she was always surrounded by a few close friends and admirers who came seeking her out. Rose and I sat together in class, and she would often rest her chin in her hand, gazing at Felicity's back with admiration, sighing, "I wish I could be a girl like her." I didn't think much of it, twirling my pen as I casually agreed. "Everyone has their own struggles, she has her flaws, and you have your strengths, why envy others?" Our friendship lasted only a brief semester. Rose disappeared for the entire winter break without a single word to me. When we met again at the start of the second semester, Rose had already changed. Familiar with the dormitory environment, Rose stood at the door, where the surroundings remained the same but the people had changed. Her hair was dyed a vibrant red, she wore awkward high heels, and her makeup was heavy as she followed behind Felicity. I had no idea when she had become so close to Felicity. Rose spent all of her limited living expenses on dressing herself up. She began to actively ingratiate herself with Felicity. When Felicity was in a good mood, she would give Rose her used cosmetics, bags, and clothes. Occasionally, I also caught Rose taking advantage of my absence in the dorm to complain to Felicity about me. She usually seems warm-hearted and smiles at everyone, but she's actually said a lot of bad things about you in private. If you don't believe me, try asking her for help when no one is around. She'll definitely give you a big eye roll." Seeing me walk into the dorm silently, Rose quickly shut her mouth, her eyes glancing at me intentionally or unintentionally. Over time, the atmosphere in the dorm began to change subtly. Felicity went from being friendly and polite to me at first to occasionally making sarcastic remarks later on. I knew that Rose was largely responsible for this. This time, my unwillingness to lend the heating pad undoubtedly reinforced the truth of Rose's words in Felicity's eyes, but for someone who has already lost a life once, I no longer care about these things. As long as it doesn't involve me or my family, I will remain a complete bystander. Now, all I want is to stay away from Rose and Felicity. The first thing I did after waking up was to quickly fill out the forms and apply to my counselor for a dormitory change, but clearly, someone wasn't willing to let me go. It was a morning just like any other. With my 600-degree nearsightedness, I was about to press the damp towel to my face when Erica, who was brushing her teeth beside me, slapped it away. She bent down to pick up my towel, turning it over and over in her hands as if searching for something. A minute later, Erica held the towel up before my eyes. A slender, silver needle was hidden within the towel, its gleam under the sunlight piercing straight into my eyes. Erica and I stared at each other in shock. Despite the blazing sun of May, a chill crept up my spine, and I couldn't help but shiver. Rose and Felicity happened to return from outside at that moment. Rose caught sight of the towel in Erica's hand at a glance and sneered, "Evil people get what they deserve." Filled with rage, I grabbed the towel and confronted Rose. "Was it you who put it there?" Rose shrugged it off, giving a disdainful smile before retorting, "Which eye of yours saw me put it there? Do you have any evidence? If you don't have evidence, don't go around making baseless accusations here." Felicity took out her compact from her bag, touching up her makeup in the mirror while chiming in, "Yeah, instead of letting a mad dog bite people here, you should reflect on who you might have offended in the past." I was about to retort when I was startled by Felicity's sudden scream, "Rose, come over here and take a look." Rose quickly changed her expression, anxiously asking 3 times in a row, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong with my dear Felicity?" Felicity scrutinized her face in the mirror, frowning and muttering, "Have I gained weight recently?" My face looked so much rounder. It was only then that I remembered. Without the harm caused by the heating pad, the child was still in Felicity's womb at this time. Rose played along perfectly, exclaiming in a somewhat exaggerated tone, "It does seem a little rounder, but you're naturally beautiful. What's wrong with a beauty gaining a little weight?" Such words clearly didn't console Felicity. She flung the compact powder onto the floor and whined, "That won't do. Last time Achan said I'd gained weight. If I keep getting fatter like this, he'll really start to dislike me." I was already annoyed by those sisters he recognized. Felicity slapped the table with both hands and made a decision, "I'm going to lose weight." The incident with the needle in the towel was dropped due to lack of evidence. The counselor's application for a room change was approved, and in half a month, I could move to a newly vacated dormitory. Meanwhile, Felicity's weight loss plan has already begun. Felicity eats only 1 apple a day, every day. She is so hungry that she feels weak and dizzy. Rose keeps encouraging her on the side, exclaiming, "The results of your weight loss these past few days have been amazing. Your face has visibly slimmed down a whole size. Brother Chen really likes this type. He's definitely going to be shocked when he sees you next time." Felicity, hearing this, even though she was feeling weak, forced herself to put on a proud expression. Of course, I've been deliberately avoiding dates lately just for Brother Chen's birthday party at the end of the month. I want to make a perfect appearance, give him a surprise, that way, he won't keep telling me to eat less every day." But as she watched the numbers on the scale gradually rise, Felicity grew even more anxious. The day of the appointment with Achin was drawing closer. She complained about her irregular periods and hair loss due to dieting, while searching online for quick weight loss methods. Soon, Felicity purchased fat-burning cream and plastic wrap online. Every morning when I woke up and before bed, I could see Rose carefully applying a thick layer of the weight loss cream to Felicity, then tightly wrapping her in plastic wrap. Faced with this burning pain, Felicity cheerfully declared that it must be working. Rose curled her lips into a faint smile. Her eyes fixed intently on the plastic wrap in her hand, she unconsciously tightened her grip a bit more and echoed in a very soft voice, "Yes, it's working." Watching the playful scene between good friends, I lay in bed, feeling a strong sense of discomfort rising within me. Rose noticed my gaze. After a brief moment of daze, she covered it up with an ingratiating smile. She squinted her eyes at Felicity. "On Brother Chen's birthday, you'll definitely be the most beautiful goddess in the room." However, before Chen's birthday arrived, on the night before I was about to move out of the dormitory, something happened to Felicity. At 3 in the morning in the dormitory, intermittent groans suddenly came from Felicity's bed, which eventually turned into eerie sobs that sent chills down one's spine. Erica was closest to the light switch in the dormitory. She got out of bed, turned on the light, and snapped, "Felicity, what's wrong with you?" groaning and moaning in the middle of the night. "We have an 8 a.m. class tomorrow, can't you let people sleep this late?" Erica's outburst came to an abrupt halt halfway through. Sensing something was wrong, I sat up from the bed and opened the curtains. I saw Erica frozen in place, her eyes wide and mouth agape. A few seconds later, a sharp scream erupted from Erica's mouth. Following her line of sight, I too froze in place. The edge of Felicity's bedboard was stained red with blood, the crimson liquid dripping down the wooden plank onto the books on the lower bunk. A trembling hand extended from behind the bed curtain, and through the gap, it was clear that Felicity's blanket was completely soaked through with blood. Even so, the bleeding between her legs showed no sign of stopping, continuing to flow out in a steady stream. Erica dialed the counselor's phone number. An hour later, our entire dorm was taken to the hospital emergency department. Erica was at the hospital explaining to the counselor what she had witnessed and Felicity's weight loss journey over the past period. I watched Rose, who was still drowsy, and fell into deep thought. During that semester I spent with Rose, I also learned some of her little habits in daily life. She said she had to take care of her 3-year-old little brother at home, and if she didn't do it well, the whole family would take turns blaming her, so Rose had always been a light sleeper, noticing even the slightest movement. But with Erica making such a loud noise just now, it was impossible for her to have waited until the counselor arrived before being woken up by the counselor from her bed. To confirm my suspicions, I walked over to Rose, who was yawning, lowered my voice, and sighed. Although Felicity usually acts like a spoiled young lady, when something really happens, it's quite worrying. I don't know how she ended up like this just from losing weight. "Do you think it's because of the fat-burning slimming cream?" Rose slightly raised her eyes, looking at the lit-up operating room, and murmured, "Julia, did you really not know that Felicity was pregnant?" Her eyes were still filled with worry, but her tone couldn't help being frivolous and cheerful. Seeing that I didn't respond, Rose turned around, looking at me with a smile. She said word by word, "In this lifetime, you've escaped a calamity, but even without a warm baby, I can still ruin her." Felicity was called to the hospital for heavy bleeding due to a miscarriage and was hospitalized for a month. The school organized a series of club activities to suppress the matter. Public opinion comes and goes quickly. While Felicity was still unconscious in the hospital, the incident had already been gradually forgotten by everyone. I moved to a new dormitory, and my former roommate only occasionally kept in touch with Erica. As for Rose, she was becoming more and more like another Felicity. Rose had been skipping classes for a long time and was often absent from the classroom. I saw her again at an off-campus dinner gathering. I attended a birthday party for my new roommate. At the next table, there were occasional sounds of boys roughhousing and girls playfully scolding and laughing. Erica nudged me with her elbow and signaled with her eyes. "Look, isn't that Rose?" Under the dim light, a group of men and women sat around on the sofa, glasses clinked, and youthful bodies swayed to the music. Colorful lights shone on Rose's face as she leaned against a man, laughing brightly and unrestrainedly. That man, I could never forget him even in my dreams. He had a head of yellow hair and 6 earrings in his ears. with one arm around Rose's waist. His gaze swept casually around the bar, then, his eyes met mine in the crowd. I quickly averted my gaze, unable to help but take a deep breath. The knife wound from my previous life was still itching faintly. Erica continued to whisper in my ear, "After you moved out, Rose completely let herself go. She took all of Felicity's things for herself, using her makeup, wearing her clothes, and even sleeping directly in Felicity's bed." My goodness, I was stunned when I saw it. That bed was soaked in blood, and she actually dared to sleep in it, not long ago. She even got together with Felicity's ex-boyfriend. It's that guy named Achin. He's bought Rose a lot of things, and he's been incredibly generous with his spending. Now all those new freshman girls are surrounding her, calling her sister-in-law. Even more arrogant than Felicity was back in the day. Erica viciously took a bite of the fruit in her hand. At least Felicity had some capital to back it up. But Rose has completely forgotten how much of a country bumpkin she looked when she first arrived at the dorm. My stomach churned violently. The taste of alcohol, the voices in my ears, and the phantom pains all over my body gradually made me dizzy. Erica noticed something was off with me and quickly stopped talking, asking, "Julia, are you okay?" I waved my hands repeatedly. "I'm fine. I'm just feeling a bit unwell and need to head back to school. You guys have fun." I picked up my bag and turned to leave. Just as I was about to reach the door, I bumped into someone. He stood there with his hands in his pockets, showing no intention of moving aside. That familiar voice, tinged with a teasing tone, came from above. "Are you from Rose's school?" I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms, choosing to remain silent as I detoured to escape the scene. However, the gaze from behind grew even more amused. Rose's hand rested on that person's shoulder. "Achin, what's so interesting? Come back and keep me company." The next day, I asked my counselor for leave due to a high fever. In my dream, that gaze was magnified countless times in the sky like a demon, locking onto me tightly. The scorching gaze shot countless penetrating holes through my body. A smell of something burning drifted into my nostrils. I woke up struggling, only to see Rose holding a hot curling iron, clamping the corner of my blanket. Her eyes were filled with hatred and satisfaction. Seeing me wake up, she narrowed her eyes and, in an instant, threw the curling iron at me. I scrambled up from the head of the bed, grabbed a pillow with my backhand, and blocked the curling iron that was aimed at my face. The curling iron bounced back and fell onto Rose's arm. She screamed in pain and tried to climb onto the bed to grab me. Watching the almost frenzied Rose, I shouted, "Rose, you're crazy." Seeing that she was about to climb onto the bed, I lifted the blanket with both hands and covered her head, then kicked Rose off the bed. Rose fell to the ground, struggling inside the quilt. Summoning all my strength, I leaped straight from the bed, landing on the quilt and pressing it down firmly. Perhaps I hadn't yet shaken off the fright from the nightmare, or perhaps Rose's betrayal across 2 lifetimes had left me too enraged. Sitting on the quilt, I picked up the curling iron from the floor and struck the quilt again and again. "You came looking for me. This is self-defense, Rose. What on earth have I done to offend you? You harmed me in my past life, and now you want to harm me again in this life. Felicity may be spoiled, but she genuinely cares about you. Someone like you, repaying kindness with betrayal, beating you to death would be doing society a favor." My mind flashed back to the image of my parents humbly begging Rose to testify in my past life, while she stared at them with innocent, wide eyes and said, "Julia always liked to pretend to be a good person. She caused someone to have a miscarriage, so being killed by others is just karma." I gradually lost control of my strength, each strike fueled by hatred, growing fiercer and fiercer. Rose seemed to realize that I had completely lost my sanity. She struggled desperately to break free from the quilt, even as the curling iron struck her body, leaving red marks one after another. Rose crawled out of the quilt at all costs. As she crawled, she pleaded for mercy. "Julia, I was wrong. Please stop hitting me." Struggling to get up, the red marks on Rose's body visibly began to blister. She looked down at her scalded legs, grabbed her hair, and let out a desperate scream with a sob in her voice. "Julia, why? Why do you have to ruin everything for me?" Felicity finally dropped out. "And now there's you." Rose slowly looked up, staring at me with a mix of tears and laughter. "Do you really think Felicity was good to me? Do you know what others say about me? They all say I'm Felicity's dog, only picking up the trash she doesn't want. If she really cared about me, would she allow the people around her to say such things? I'm just a tool for her to feel superior." Rose wanted to walk toward me, but the blisters between her legs made her gasp in pain. She looked at the curling iron in my hand, then stopped and continued to scold me, and you, being nice to me is just about enjoying others praising your kindness. A few yuan heating pad is enough to maintain your innocent lotus persona. Everyone praises you for being kind and good to me, but the sight of you makes me sick, to be honest with you. Part of the reason Felicity had a miscarriage was indeed due to the heating pad you borrowed, but what ultimately caused her miscarriage was the moment I made her fall from the stool. It was me who told Brother Achin that you had been bullying Felicity for a long time and deliberately caused her miscarriage. People like them are foolish, rich, impulsive, and as easy to command as dogs. I sneered coldly and laughed. Rose, you really want Felicity to have a miscarriage? Aren't you afraid of karma? Rose scoffed. She's the one who got herself pregnant, and she's the one who thought she was just gaining weight and insisted on losing weight. I just took advantage of the situation and introduced her to a weight loss method. She should thank me. The later the pregnancy is discovered, the more suffering she'll endure during the miscarriage. I gripped the curling iron in my hand tighter and tighter, wishing I could shove it into her mouth right away. However, Rose suddenly regained her composure the very next second. She tidied her hair with both hands and took out a compact from her bag to touch up her makeup. She continued speaking, Julia, if heaven gives me another chance, it's because it wants me to live a wonderful life. After saying this, she took out her lipstick again, the vibrant color covering her pale lips. Rose, who had just been acting crazy, had returned to her refined appearance, but upon closer inspection, the essence of decay still seeped through. Rose walked away in her high heels, leaving behind one final remark. Julia, fate has given you a chance to manage yourself well and live a good life. Don't stand in my way. I watched her retreating figure, picked up the phone on the desk with its screen facing down, and looked at the call page. I then asked the person on the other end of the line, Felicity, did you hear everything clearly? On the day of my new roommate's birthday party, Erica grabbed me just as I was about to leave. Julia, the back door is closer from here. Why are you heading to the front door? I looked up at Achin pacing back and forth at the front door, patted Erica on the shoulder, and returned a reassuring smile. The car I called is at the front door. I stumbled toward the front door and, following the planned route, bumped into Achin's arms. Then, I left a note and fled in a panic. Felicity once said in the dormitory that Achin was a playboy who never turned anyone down. He especially liked schoolgirls. And he was always surrounded by a flock of admirers, which made her very worried. On that note, I had written my phone number and name in advance. I didn't want to get involved with a social youth like Achin, so the phone number was fake, but the name was real. My target was Rose. Erica said that after I left, Rose made a big scene with a note in hand, overturning her roommate's birthday cake and even cursing Julia as a shameless bitch at the birthday party. She cared too much about everything she had worked so hard to obtain. Although Felicity didn't understand what we meant by these 2 lifetimes, she couldn't tolerate being described as a foolish, easy-to-order dog, especially since she had been harmed to the point of miscarriage and nearly lost her life due to excessive blood loss. Felicity gritted her teeth on the other end of the phone, saying, I finally know where Achin has been going all this time I've been in the hospital. He's been messing around with that bitch, that pair of scumbags. Neither of them will get away with this. Felicity hung up the phone. As I tidied up the mess on the bed, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. It takes a villain to deal with a villain. To avoid causing trouble for my parents, I have always held the belief since childhood that it's better to avoid trouble than to provoke it. Now, being able to outsmart and shake off the vicious dog feels like shaking off the mud from my body. Next, I can quietly blend in and peacefully enjoy my campus life. For a long time after that, I never saw Rose again. Erica said the last time she saw Rose was when she went to the hospital to get the HPV vaccine. While hailing a taxi outside, she saw Rose coming out of a private clinic in a small alley. Compared to her previous figure, she looked much thinner. The counselor contacted Rose's parents several times, but could only listen to their helpless complaints. We want to discipline her, but she won't listen. Last year, she stole her grandmother's medicine money, and this year she hasn't been coming home at all. If she doesn't want to study, then let it be. Teacher, don't worry about her anymore. We'll just consider this daughter a lost cause. The counselor also came to see me. The teacher said that although Rose's family was poor, they were genuinely good to her, to allow Rose to attend university. Her father worked away from home all year round, while her disabled mother stayed at home to care for her bedridden grandmother. The so-called 3-year-old brother was actually 16 years old. Grandma originally had a selfish wish to have Rose drop out of school, but Rose threw a huge tantrum at home, smashing everything that could be broken, to shoulder the family's burden. her younger brother chose to drop out of school on his own and went out to work with their father. Every year, their father would transfer the money for Grandma's medicine to Rose, the only one in the family who knew how to use a bank card. However, ever since she started university, that money never reached her mother's hands again. Rose's mother thought it was the boss who owed wages outside, and she didn't dare to bring it up easily to urge him. The teacher said she didn't understand why the girl, who seemed quiet and gentle when she first enrolled, had become like this. I smiled silently and replied, "Perhaps this is her true nature, and we were all just deceived by appearances." Another year, as the winter break approached, Felicity returned from the hospital. She returned to the dormitory with an older nanny behind her. After class, Erica sent me a message, "Julia, come back to the dorm after class. Felicity is waiting for you in the dorm." I walked into the dormitory I hadn't set foot in for a year. Holding my books, Felicity had recovered very well. Her face was rosy. Adorned with lovely makeup, dressed in designer brands, she looked no different from when she first started school. The nanny was diligently packing the luggage. Felicity saw me coming, crossed her arms in front of her chest, and said with ease, "Julia, I've dropped out. My mom is sending me abroad to study." I smiled and nodded. "Congratulations." Felicity continued, "I waited for you because I wanted to talk about Rose." I nodded, signaling for her to go on. Felicity raised the corner of her lips slightly, a hint of triumph shimmering in her eyes. I can't help but sigh. It's really great to have money. Not only does it give you the confidence to make mistakes, but even a bold smile can be so radiant and captivating. After receiving that phone call, Felicity found a woman who perfectly suited Achen's taste and sent her to his home. Achen accepted her as usual, and even took the opportunity to praise Felicity, saying she was a sensible girl. What Achen didn't know was that the girl who came to him was carrying a disease. This disease was something Rose could have avoided. After enjoying himself, Achen quickly discarded Rose and immediately wanted to reconcile with Felicity. Felicity said to Achen, "I'll think about it overnight." It was this very night. In the early part of the night, Rose knelt outside Felicity's door, drenched in the rain for hours, crying and begging Felicity to return Achen to her. In the later part of the night, soaked to the point of being half transparent, she hugged her shoulders, curled up her body, and knocked on Achen's door. After a moment of contemplation, I asked, "What illness did the girl you sent have?" "AIDS." Felicity said it lightly. I suddenly understood why Rose never dared to come to school again, why she appeared at a private clinic. Felicity looked at my expression, covered her mouth, and let out a giggled laugh. What's even more ridiculous is that Achen thought Rose had infected her. Chen told his brothers that from now on, no matter who it is, whenever they see Rose, they should record a video each time, 5,000 for one video. She doesn't know where she's hiding now. Felicity could no longer hold back. The image of Rose's tragic state seemed to flash before her eyes. "Do you know what Rose said at my doorstep that night? She said she didn't want much, just 1% of what I have. Why wasn't I willing to give it to her?" I said, "There's no reason. Giving and taking are both privileges of the wealthy." She threw her head back and laughed, a hearty, unrestrained laugh. Yet, within this smile, I could only feel waves of a chilling, oppressive cold. "Oh, right." Felicity, as if suddenly remembering something, raised an eyebrow to signal the nanny to fetch something. The nanny took out a bag from the suitcase that looked undeniably expensive. Felicity said, "To thank you for helping me get away from that despicable couple. This is a gift for you. If I had really given birth to that child, my mom would have beaten me to death." I took the bag and smiled awkwardly. Felicity hopped out the door, but at the entrance, she suddenly stopped, turned around, and asked me, "Julia, why did you block me?" looking at the bag in my hand. I pretended to be clueless and replied, "Oh, really, forget it, forget it." Felicity waved her hand. "Anyway, we're not from the same world." Her hair fluttered as she turned and walked into the sunlight. Only after her figure had completely disappeared from sight did I step out of the dormitory. In the corridor, my footsteps came to a halt in front of the trash can. Looking at the luxury bag I had thrown into the trash, I froze for a few seconds, then burst out laughing. Yes, we were never from the same world. The warm winter sun spread across the corridor. Then, I hugged my books and strode forward. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. Colleagues love to joke around. I have low blood sugar, and she swapped my candy for salt pills, laughing and filming me as I got dizzy and disoriented. The sunscreen she kindly handed me was mixed with itching powder. causing my skin to break out in sores. In 40 degrees Celsius heat, she hid the air conditioner remote, smiling and saying, "A calm mind naturally stays cool," until the very end. She tricked me into going out to the suburbs to bake in the sun, emptied my water and medicine, and watched as I fell into a coma from heatstroke, leading to multiple organ failure and death. After I died, she posted on her social media, "My colleagues' stamina is so poor, they get out of breath after just a few steps. Who can they blame?" When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day she first slipped salt pills into my candy. In this life, I'm going to make her understand what it means to take a joke too far. I suddenly steadied myself against the wall as a familiar wave of dizziness washed over me. My vision darkened, my limbs went weak, and cold sweat instantly soaked through the shirt on my back. Low blood sugar. Here it comes again. With trembling fingers, I reached into my pocket and felt the familiar candy wrapper. I could hardly wait to tear open the packaging and pop the candy into my mouth. It was salty, a salt pill. This realization hit me like a bucket of ice water, sending a shiver through my body, followed by the sound of that unforgettable laughter ringing in my ears. "Ha ha ha, look at Song Minjing stumbling around. Doesn't she look drunk?" I struggled to lift my head and saw Hu Siyuan holding up her phone, filming me, unable to hide the glee on her face. A few colleagues beside her chuckled along, some showing a hint of concern, yet no one stepped forward to help. This scene was exactly the same as in my previous life. I have been reborn. I had returned to 3 months before I was killed by Hu Siyuan's prank, back to the place where this nightmare began. The salty taste in my mouth made me want to vomit. But what disgusted me even more was Hu Siyuan's hypocritical smile. Back then, I weakly endured it all, thinking it was just harmless banter among colleagues, until those jokes escalated time and again, ultimately taking my life in the scorching heat of the countryside. "Siyuan, what is this you've given me?" I forced myself to endure the dizziness, but my voice came out unusually clear. Hu Siyuan's smile froze for a moment, clearly not expecting my reaction. "Candy, what's wrong?" She blinked her innocent big eyes. "Minjing, are you okay? You look terrible." "Is that so?" I sneered, spitting the salt tablet into my palm and holding it up to her. "Then taste this and tell me what it is." The chatter and laughter in the office gradually quieted down. Several colleagues looked over curiously. Hu Siyuan took half a step back, a flicker of panic crossing her face, but she quickly put on that insincere, concerned expression again. "Oh dear, maybe I mixed them up. I have salt tablets and candies in my bag, and they look so similar. Took the wrong one." I took a step closer. "Then why did you specifically take my spare candy from my drawer and replace it with this? Why was your first reaction to film a video instead of helping when I had a hypoglycemic episode?" My voice wasn't loud, but it was particularly clear in the quiet office. Several colleagues exchanged glances, and someone frowned. Hu Siyuan's expression changed. She hadn't expected me to know these details. "Minjing, what do you mean by that? I kindly gave you candy, and you're blaming me instead." Her eyes suddenly reddened. "I just wanted to make a joke." "A joke?" I interrupted her. "Making a joke at the expense of someone else's health? What's going on here?" Department Head Director Lin poked his head out of the office, scanning us with displeasure. "It's fine, Director Lin." Hu Siyuan quickly put on a sweet smile. "Minjing isn't feeling well, and I was just about to help her." I watched her performance coldly, without exposing her. Now is not the time to completely tear off the mask. Experience tells me that Hu Siyuan has Director Lin backing her up, and acting rashly would only put me in a passive position. "If you're not feeling well, go to the restroom, don't disturb others while they're working." Director Lin closed the door after leaving those words. Hu Siyuan glanced at me smugly, leaned close to my ear, and whispered, "It was just a joke. You didn't take it seriously, did you? No wonder you have no friends, being so uptight." I looked straight into her eyes, my voice eerily calm. "Siyuan, do you know what I hate the most? It's malice disguised as a joke. From today on, I will return every joke you make tenfold." Her pupils contracted slightly, clearly taken aback by my attitude. Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked toward the lounge, taking the real backup glucose tablets from my bag and placing them under my tongue. Sitting on the sofa in the lounge, I closed my eyes to gather my thoughts. The advantage of rebirth is that I know what will happen next. Hu Siyuan's pranks will escalate step by step. Sunscreen mixed with itching powder, a frozen air conditioner remote, coffee laced with laxatives, and that final, fatal outing. But this time, I won't be a silent victim anymore. I want Hu Siyuan to personally experience what it means to reap what you sow. when I returned to my workstation, I noticed Hu Siyuan secretly taking a tube of sunscreen from the drawer, a sly smile playing at the corner of her mouth. So the second joke is already prepared, is it? I sat down expressionlessly and turned on my computer. My thoughts were still lingering on the final moment of my death in my previous life. The distorted vision under the scorching sun, the gradually fading consciousness. And Hu Siyuan's piercing laughter. Minjing, do you want to put on some sunscreen? The UV rays are particularly strong today. Hu Siyuan's voice pulled me back from my memories. She stood by my workstation, holding a tube of white sunscreen in her hand, with an innocent smile on her face. That tube of sunscreen looked just like any ordinary one, but I knew it was mixed with a potent itching powder. In my previous life, I applied it without any suspicion, and my skin became red, swollen, and stinging, forcing me to take leave and go to the hospital. Hu Siyuan, however, hypocritically said, "Oh dear, maybe you're allergic to some of the ingredients." "Thanks, I brought my own." I took out my own sunscreen from the drawer and waved it at her. Hu Siyuan's smile froze for a moment but quickly recovered. "Oh, this is a new product, really good, you should try it." She unscrewed the cap and squeezed out a small dollop of white cream. I stared at the cream, then suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist. "If it's so effective, why don't you use it yourself?" The sound of keyboards in the office seemed to grow quieter. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a few colleagues sneaking glances in our direction. Hu Siyuan hadn't expected this move, and her wrist trembled slightly in my grasp. "I already applied it this morning." "Is that so?" I sneered, adding a bit more force to my grip. "What's the harm in applying it one more time?" I pushed her hand toward her own face. "What are you doing?" Hu Siyuan yanked her hand back, and the sunscreen splattered onto the ground. Her voice was unnaturally shrill, drawing even more stares. I feigned surprise. "Just kidding, you didn't take it seriously, did you?" Using her favorite line to throw it back at her felt even more satisfying than I had imagined. Hu Siyuan's face flushed bright red. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but was interrupted by a burst of applause. "Everyone, please pay attention." Department Director Lin stood in the center of the office and clapped his hands. "We just received a notice from headquarters that the Vela Group project has been moved up, and we need to present our proposal next week. We'll split into 2 competing teams, and ultimately, one plan will be selected for submission. I'll lead Team A, and Deputy Director Li will lead Team B," Director Lin said. Scanning the office, "Volunteers, please step forward. I want to be in the same group as Minjing." Hu Siyuan suddenly raised her hand, her voice dripping with sweetness. "We work together the best." "Tacit understanding? You mean the kind of tacit understanding where she steals my ideas and stabs me in the back?" Director Lin nodded with satisfaction. "Excellent, Song Minjing, Hu Siyuan, Wang Lei, and Zhang Yida, the 4 of you are in Group A. The rest will follow." Deputy Director Li, his gaze swept over me, and he added, "This project is crucial to the company's performance in the second half of the year. I hope everyone gives it their all." After the meeting adjourned, I headed straight to the restroom. Closing the door, I took a deep breath in front of the mirror. "Are you okay?" A deep male voice startled me, almost making me jump. Turning around, I saw Zhang Yida from the technical department standing in the corridor outside the restroom. Maintaining a polite distance, he was very tall, wearing his ever-present black t-shirt and jeans, with messy hair that looked like he had just woken up. "The restroom is under maintenance. The women's side is leaking," he explained, pointing to the "out of service" sign nearby. I only then noticed the water stains and repair tools on the floor. In my previous life, I was busy dealing with Hu Siyuan's sunscreen mess at this time and never came to the restroom, so I naturally didn't encounter this scene. "Thanks for the reminder." I nodded and prepared to leave. "That sunscreen," Zhang Yida suddenly spoke, his voice lowered. I just saw Hu Siyuan adding something to it. I suddenly looked up at him. Zhang Yida's expression was calm, but his gaze was unusually sharp. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked warily. He shrugged. "The tech department sees more than you'd think." After a pause, he added, "The company's surveillance system occasionally has interesting blind spots." My heart raced. The insinuation in his words made me think more than I should. "Thanks for the reminder," I repeated, this time with more sincerity. Back at my desk, I noticed a new note on the table. "Be careful with H. Her relationship with Lin is not ordinary." I looked around but didn't notice anyone suspicious. The handwriting on the note was as neat as if it had been printed, showing no distinctive features. My phone suddenly vibrated, and the screen showed, "Mom, Yingying, have you eaten yet?" Mom's voice was warm and familiar, making my nose tingle. "Have you eaten yet?" "Just finished." your dad asked me to ask if you're coming home this weekend. He bought your favorite shrimp and said he wants to show off his cooking skills. I bit my lip. Yes, I'll definitely come back. My voice choked up a little. What's wrong? Work not going well? Mom keenly sensed something was off. Nothing. I just miss you guys. I quickly adjusted my mood. By the way, has Dad been taking his blood pressure medication on time? Yes, don't worry about it. Focus on your work, take care of your health, and don't always eat takeout. After hanging up, I leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. The concern of family is like a mirror, reflecting how isolated and helpless I am in the workplace. No one will protect me except myself. In the office, Hu Siyuan was whispering something into Director Lin's ear, and the two of them were laughing ambiguously. Director Lin, nearly 40 years old, married with children, yet he accepted all of Hu Siyuan's attentions without hesitation. Ming Ying, here are the materials for the Vera project. Hu Siyuan suddenly appeared in front of me, handing over a folder with a sweet smile. Director Lin said you're in charge of the market analysis section, and it's due tomorrow. I opened the folder to find a thick stack of disorganized data tables, clearly left untidy on purpose. All right, I calmly took it, watching her turn and walk away, a cold smile curling at the corner of my mouth. This time, I was well prepared. At the end of the workday, people in the office gradually left. I deliberately took my time packing up, waiting for Hu Siyuan to leave first, before she left. She even, thoughtfully, reminded me, don't stay too late. I heard the building's air conditioning gets turned off at night, and it gets really hot. I knew exactly what she was up to. In my past life, when I worked overtime until midnight, the air conditioning suddenly stopped, and I nearly suffered heatstroke from the heat. I later found out that it was Hu Siyuan who secretly contacted the property management, falsely claiming that our department was already empty. After confirming that she had left, I turned on the computer again and began organizing the data. It wasn't to complete Director Lin's task, but to gather evidence. The lights in the technical department were still on. I hesitated for a moment, then walked over. Zhang Yida was sitting alone in front of the computer, lines of code flashing on the screen that I couldn't understand. Still here, I tapped on the glass door. He looked up, seemingly unsurprised by my appearance. Working overtime. He replied, keeping it brief, regarding the blind spots in surveillance you mentioned earlier. I carefully chose my words. Could you elaborate on that? Zhang Yida adjusted his glasses, the lenses reflecting the blue light from the screen. The company's surveillance footage is automatically overwritten every 7 days, but recordings from certain time periods mysteriously disappear. He looked at me meaningfully. For example, the surveillance footage from the 16th floor corridor between 3 and 4 p.m. last Thursday, that was precisely the time frame when my candy had been swapped. How can I see these missing recordings? My heart raced. He gave a slight smile at the corner of his mouth. In theory, deleted data cannot be recovered, and in non-theory, Zhang Yida didn't answer but handed me a USB drive. The annual data from the Vera project might be useful to you. I took the USB drive. And the moment my fingers touched his, I felt something small being slipped over along with it, a micro memory card. The tech department sometimes backs up some interesting things. His voice was almost inaudible. Use it carefully. Back at my workstation, I inserted the memory card. There was only one video file inside. When I opened it, I saw the surveillance footage from the 16th floor hallway last Thursday. Hu Siyuan sneaking into my office, taking the candy box from my drawer, pouring out the candies, and replacing them with salt pills. I clenched my fist. This was the first piece of evidence I needed. Just as I was about to close the video, a second figure appeared on the screen. Director Lin. He walked up behind Hu Siyuan, intimately wrapping his arm around her waist, and she turned to kiss him. So that's how it is. No wonder Hu Siyuan was so confident. It turns out there was this connection behind the scenes. Outside the window, the night had grown deep. The building had indeed become unbearably stuffy, just as Hu Siyuan had said, but this time, I took out the portable fan and ice packs I had prepared in advance from my bag. The morning sunlight streamed through the office's glass curtain wall, and I arrived at my workstation early, placing a small bottle into the drawer. The bottle contained a colorless, transparent liquid that looked no different from ordinary toner. I turned on the computer and pulled up the evidence list I had compiled the night before. The first item was salt pills replaced with candy, followed by a backup of the video from the memory card. The second point, sunscreen mixed with itching powder, currently only has Zhang Yida's eyewitness testimony. I need more solid evidence. Good morning, Minjing. Hu Siyuan's voice came from behind. How late did you work last night? You look so pale. Without looking up, I replied. Enough to finish the tasks assigned by Director Lin. She leaned in, and the scent of her perfume gave me a headache. Perfect, I happen to have some market data to add. Her hand reached for my mouse. I snapped my laptop shut. It's on the USB drive. I'll send it to you in a moment. I looked up and met her eyes directly. By the way, do you still have that tube of sunscreen from yesterday? I suddenly want to try it. Hu Siyuan's eyes lit up, like a shark catching the scent of blood. Of course, she quickly pulled out the tube of sunscreen from her bag. I told you, this brand is really good. I took the sunscreen and pretended to carefully read the ingredient list. SPF 50+, that's pretty high. I unscrewed the cap and squeezed a little onto my fingertip. Are you sure this is safe? Of course, she said confidently. I've been using it myself for a long time. I nodded, then suddenly grabbed her wrist and applied the sunscreen to the back of her hand. Then let's use it together. What are you doing? Hu Siyuan screamed, pulling her hand back, her face instantly turning pale. Colleagues in the office looked up one after another. Wang Lei adjusted his glasses. What's all the noise so early in the morning? Nothing. I raised my voice. Siyuan kindly recommended sunscreen, and when I suggested we share it, she seemed a bit reluctant. Hu Siyuan forced a smile. I was just startled. She vigorously rubbed the back of her hand. But the sunscreen had already seeped into her skin. I watched coldly. In my past life, this tube of sunscreen made my arms red and swollen, itching so badly that I scratched until they bled, forcing me to go to the hospital for an injection. Now, I want to see how long she can endure it. In less than 10 minutes, Hu Siyuan began to squirm uncomfortably, constantly scratching the back of her right hand with her left. Siyuan, are you okay? I feigned concern. Why is your hand so red? The skin on her hand had already started to turn red, with a patch of fine rashes appearing. It's fine, maybe I got bitten by a mosquito. Her smile was stiff, and fine beads of sweat were forming on her forehead. I raised my voice. Oh no, could it be an allergic reaction to the sunscreen? Didn't you just say you've been using it for a long time without any issues? Curious glances came from the colleagues around us. Hu Siyuan felt as if sitting on pins and needles. The red rash on the back of her hand becoming increasingly noticeable. I need to go to the restroom. She grabbed her bag and fled in a panic. Wang Lei leaned over and asked, what's wrong with her? I shrugged. Who knows, maybe the sunscreen has expired. I picked up that tube of sunscreen. Want to give it a try? Siyuan says it works really well. Wang Lei quickly waved his hand. No thanks, I'm allergic to cosmetics. Hu Siyuan stayed in the bathroom for nearly half an hour before returning, with a thick layer of ointment on the back of her hand and a gloomy expression. She glared at me fiercely, and I responded with an innocent smile. During my lunch break, I went alone to the pharmacy near the company. Do you have any strong medication for contact dermatitis? I asked the pharmacist behind the counter. We do, but it contains hormones and shouldn't be used long-term. The pharmacist replied, taking out a tube of ointment. Also, I'd like a box of the strongest anti-allergy medication. I added, after being tormented by Hu Siyuan's pranks in my past life, these medicines became a regular item in my bag. Now, I will return the favor in kind. Returning to the office, I found an extra note on my desk. Department dinner today. Don't be late, Director Lin. I sneered. At this dinner in my past life, my drink was spiked with laxatives. And I had to run to the bathroom over a dozen times in one night. It seems Hu Siyuan, after today's setback, couldn't wait to regain his footing. Before leaving work, I quietly slipped the small bottle I had prepared in the morning into my bag. Inside the bottle was my specially crafted seasoning, a concentrated extract from several types of laxatives, colorless and odorless, but with a rather remarkable effect. The dinner gathering was at a Chinese restaurant near the company. Our department of over 20 people gathered around two large round tables. I deliberately chose a seat by the aisle for easy movement. Today we celebrate the successful launch of the Vera project. Director Lin raised his glass. Special thanks to the colleagues in Group A for completing the market analysis ahead of schedule. Everyone raised their glasses in celebration. Hu Siyuan sat next to Director Lin, the red rash on the back of her hand concealed by foundation but still faintly visible. Her gaze kept darting toward me, a malicious glint flickering in her eyes. The waiter began serving the dishes. Hu Siyuan suddenly stood up. I'll go get drinks for everyone. She quickly walked toward the beverage area in the corner of the restaurant. I excused myself to go to the restroom and observed her from a distance. I saw her looking around furtively, then taking a small paper packet from her bag and pouring the powder inside into a glass of lemon water. Need any help? I suddenly appeared behind her. Ah, She was so startled she almost knocked over the glass. And no, I'm almost done. I looked at the spiked lemonade in her hand and casually remarked, I love drinking lemonade. Is this cup for me? This is for Director Lin, she said in a panic. Then her eyes lit up. Oh, right, this one is yours. She handed me the other cup, which hadn't been tampered with. Thank you, I said, taking the cup and quickly swapping them when she turned around. Now. The spiked lemonade was back in her hands. Returning to my seat, I took small sips of my safe orange juice, keeping an eye on Hu Siyuan's every move out of the corner of my eye. She eagerly placed the specially prepared lemonade in front of Director Lin, but Director Lin was busy talking to someone from the finance department and didn't touch the glass. Siyuan, isn't that for me? I pointed at the glass of lemonade. She frowned. Don't you have orange juice? Suddenly felt like having lemonade. I reached out to take it. She quickly stopped me. No, I've already drunk from this cup. She grabbed the cup and gulped down more than half of it. I suppressed a laugh. That thirsty, for the next 20 minutes, I enjoyed the meal while waiting for the drug to take effect. Sure enough, Hu Siyuan began to fidget restlessly, beads of cold sweat forming on her forehead. What's wrong? I feigned concern. Is the food not to your liking? It's nothing, she answered through gritted teeth. But her expression grew increasingly unpleasant. Another 5 minutes passed, and Hu Siyuan suddenly stood up, the chair scraping against the floor with a harsh sound. Excuse me for a moment. She almost ran to the restroom. The people at the dining table exchanged glances. Director Lin frowned. What's wrong with her? I shrugged. Maybe I ate something bad. Over the next half hour, Hu Siyuan made at least 5 trips between the dining table and the restroom. Her face went from red to pale, and finally turned almost ashen gray. The last time she returned from the restroom, her legs were trembling so much she could barely stand. I should head back first, she said weakly, grabbing her bag to leave. Wait, I called out to her. Didn't you say you wanted to discuss tomorrow's presentation with me? She glared at me fiercely, her eyes filled with venom. Another day. With that, she fled in panic. Wang Lei shook his head. Got a stomachache from eating something bad. This restaurant has an A health rating. Some people just have sensitive stomachs, I said meaningfully, finishing the last sip of orange juice. After the dinner gathering, I politely declined my colleague's invitation to continue the party and returned to the office alone to pick up my things. The office building at night was eerily quiet, with only the faint green light from the emergency exit providing illumination. My workstation had been rummaged through. Although most things were roughly put back in place, there were subtle differences in their angles and positions. Turned on the computer and checked the files. They didn't seem to have been touched, but there were signs that the notebook in the drawer had been rummaged through. What are you looking for, Siyuan? I murmured to myself, closing the drawer. Just as I was about to leave, the lights in the tech department were still on. I hesitated for a moment, then walked over and knocked on the door. Come in. Zhang Yida's voice came from inside. He was sitting alone in front of the computer, with 4 or 5 windows open on the screen, all filled with code and data, working overtime again. I leaned against the doorframe. He didn't even look up. Yeah, security system upgrade. I noticed several printed surveillance screenshots on his desk, one of which clearly showed Hu Siyuan pouring something into a cup. What's that? I pointed at the photo. He finally looked up, adjusting his glasses. Restaurant surveillance. Interestingly, the camera at this angle shouldn't exist. I took a few steps closer and saw the details of the photo clearly. Did you hack the restaurant system? Theoretically, that's illegal, he said expressionlessly. In practice, I was just helping them test for security vulnerabilities. I couldn't help but laugh. Can I get a copy of these test results? Zhang Yida handed me an envelope. I've had it ready for a while. Opening the envelope. Inside were not only high-definition photos but also a USB drive. This is video evidence. It includes the entire process of her adding something to the cup. He paused, and the scene of her going through your drawer. My heart tightened. Is there surveillance in the office? Not by regulation, he said meaningfully, but there are hidden cameras in certain important areas. This information is too important. I always thought the office was a safe blind spot, but it turns out everything is under surveillance. So, the ambiguous behavior between Director Lin and Hu Siyuan, can we get those recordings? I asked directly. Zhang Yida's expression shifted for the first time, his brow slightly furrowed. Some things are better left untouched. This answer made me even more certain that he knew far more than he was letting on. Thank you for your help. I put away the envelope. But why are you helping me? He remained silent for a moment, and in the end, he only said one thing. I hate workplace bullying. Back at home, I added today's achievements to the evidence database, photos and testimonies from the sunscreen incident, the video of the drugging at the dinner, and the footage of someone going through my drawer. Each entry was marked with the time, location, and witnesses. Lying in bed, I reflected on today's 2 confrontations. Although I came out slightly ahead, Hu Siyuan would definitely not let it go, especially after being publicly humiliated today. She would surely seek revenge with a vengeance. My phone suddenly vibrated. A message from Mom. Ying. What would you like to eat this weekend? Dad says he'll make you braised prawns. My eyes grew warm with emotion. I want to eat every dish Dad makes, I replied, adding a smiling emoji. The weather forecast shows a high of 39 degrees Celsius today. Standing at the entrance of the company building, I looked up at the glaring sunlight reflected off the glass curtain wall and touched the spare air conditioner remote in my bag. On this day in my past life, the office air conditioner remote mysteriously disappeared. I was so hot I nearly suffered heatstroke. While Hu Siyuan chuckled and said, "A calm mind naturally feels cool, no wonder you're so afraid of the heat, you're so irritable." Later, someone found the frozen and malfunctioning remote control in the freezer compartment. The elevator was packed with people, a mix of sweat and perfume filling the air. I arrived at the office 20 minutes early, and as expected, it was completely empty. I quickly walked to the air conditioning controller in the common area, took out the spare remote, and set the timer, automatically turning off at 10 a.m. and turning back on at 12 p.m. The timing was just right, enough for everyone to feel the stifling heat, but not so long as to cause public outrage. More importantly, it happened to be the time of Director Lin's weekly routine inspection. I had just returned to my workstation when my colleagues started arriving one after another. Hu Siyuan was wearing a light blue dress today, looking fresh and lovely. She greeted everyone with a smile, as if she hadn't been the one who was exhausted from diarrhea yesterday. "Minjing, you don't look too well." She stopped at my desk and asked insincerely, "Did you not sleep well last night?" I looked up at her. "Slept just fine, had a good dream. In the dream, you ended up in the hospital, and I sent a wreath." The corner of her mouth twitched, but she quickly put on a smile again. "That's good. By the way, Director Lin said he wants to see the preliminary proposal for the Vera project today. Are you prepared?" "Of course." I pointed at my computer. "Finished it last night working overtime. Actually, I arrived at the company at 4 this morning and prepared a more comprehensive plan than Hu Siyuan had anticipated. In my previous life, she plagiarized my ideas for this project and deliberately tampered with key data, causing me to be publicly reprimanded by Director Lin. The morning work proceeded without a hitch. At 9:55, I glanced at the clock and quietly slipped the spare remote control into my sleeve. At exactly 10 o'clock, the air conditioner beeped and stopped running. A few seconds later, someone exclaimed, "Why is the air conditioning off? Where's the remote?" "Who saw the air conditioner remote?" Wang Lei asked, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Everyone shook their heads. The office temperature quickly rose, with sunlight streaming directly through the glass curtain wall, making the entire space feel like a greenhouse. At 10:20, Director Lin appeared at the office door right on time, dressed in a suit and tie. He frowned and wiped the sweat from his brow. "Why is it so hot? Is the air conditioner broken?" "The remote is missing," someone replied. "Look for it. How can we work in this heat?" Director Lin said impatiently, his gaze sweeping the room before landing on me. "Song Minjing, go ask the property management for a spare remote." In my past life, I really did foolishly run to the property management, and of course, there was none. When I returned, everyone was so hot and irritable, and Hu Siyuan took the opportunity to say that I couldn't even handle such a small task. "No need to go to the property management," I said calmly, pulling a spare remote control from my sleeve. I happen to have one. Everyone in the entire office looked at me in surprise. I calmly pressed the button, and the air conditioner started running again, the cool breeze dispersing the stuffy heat. "How do you have a spare remote control?" Hu Siyuan widened her eyes. "Last time the remote control's battery died, I went to the property management to get one." I looked directly into her eyes. "Is that strange, or do you know where the original remote control is?" Her expression instantly stiffened. "How would I know? Is that so?" I walked toward the refrigerator in the corner of the office. "Why don't we see what's in the fridge?" "What are you doing?" Hu Siyuan tried to stop me, but I had already opened the freezer compartment and dug out the frosted remote control from a pile of ice cubes. The office erupted in an uproar. Wang Lei whistled. "Who would do something so mean?" I held up the damp remote control and turned to Hu Siyuan. "Care to explain?" her face flushed and then paled, and finally, her eyes suddenly reddened. I was just joking. I didn't expect it to turn out like this. A joke, I sneered. Hiding the remote in the freezer, making everyone in the office sweat in 40-degree heat. You call that a joke? Siyuan didn't mean it, Director Lin suddenly interjected, frowning at me. Song Minjing, you're overreacting. I turned to him. What if a colleague with a heart condition or high blood pressure had a heatstroke today? Would that still just be a joke? Director Lin's face darkened. Just because there's no serious consequence doesn't mean it's not a big deal. It's normal for colleagues to joke around. You're being so serious. No wonder you can't fit into the team. Several colleagues exchanged glances. I noticed someone nodding in agreement with Director Lin's words. This is how the workplace is. Most people choose to protect themselves. Or even side with the bully. I understand. I put down the remote control. So, in Director Lin's eyes, deliberately damaging company property and endangering colleagues' health is just a joke. I should make more jokes too. Director Lin's expression changed. What do you mean? Nothing. I smiled. Just a joke. The atmosphere in the office froze for a moment. The cold air from the air conditioner couldn't dispel the awkwardness. All right, everyone back to work. Director Lin waved his hand and gave me a warning glare before turning away. Hu Siyuan followed him into the director's office, and as she closed the door, she didn't forget to shoot me a smug look. I sat back down at my desk, my heart pounding like a drum. Although I didn't gain any advantage from this direct confrontation, at least some of my colleagues saw Hu Siyuan's true colors. More importantly, I confirmed one thing. Director Lin is indeed covering for her, during lunch break. I went alone to the company rooftop. Few people came here. It was my refuge from Hu Siyuan's pranks in my past life. Here, the sudden voice from behind startled me. Turning around, I saw Zhang Yida handing me an iced coffee. Thank you. I took the coffee, my fingers brushing against his cold fingertips. Even on a scorching day, this person's body temperature seemed lower than most. He leaned against the railing, silently sipping another cup of coffee. We stood side by side like that, neither of us speaking. Did you see it? I finally broke the silence. He replied briefly. The surveillance footage is very clear. I turned to look at him. Hu Siyuan hid the remote in the refrigerator. At 4:17 in the morning, he adjusted his glasses. She thought no one saw. I clenched my fist. Why is Director Lin protecting her like this? Zhang Yida fell silent for a moment. Some things are safer not to know. I'm already unsafe, I said with a bitter smile. Ever since she first started putting salt in my candy. He turned to look at me, his eyes behind the lenses sharp as an eagle's. Why are you so sure it was her? The first time, my heart skipped a beat. Intuition, I said lightly. It turned out I was right, didn't it? He didn't press further, just nodded. Be careful, Director Lin isn't just a department head. What do you mean? His brother-in-law is the company's vice president. Zhang Yida finished the last sip of his coffee. That's why his department has never been subject to routine audits. This information struck me like lightning. Why are you telling me this? I looked directly into his eyes. Zhang Yida gazed into the distance. I told you, I hate office bullying. He paused, then added, especially when the bully has someone backing them up. After he left, I was the only one left on the rooftop again. I leaned on the railing, looking down at the city below. When I returned to the office in the afternoon, I could clearly sense that something was off. A few colleagues who were usually friendly avoided my gaze, while Hu Siyuan's clique occasionally pointed at me and let out deliberately suppressed laughter. Wang Lei quietly sent a message. Be careful, Siyuan says you're mentally unstable and causing trouble for her. I replied, thanks for the heads up. Did she say why I'm mentally unstable? Wang Lei's reply almost made me drop my phone. She says you have a crush on Director Lin and are jealous of his good relationship with Siyuan. That's a vicious move. Not only did they smear me, but they also implied that I was a lunatic driven by love and hatred. I looked up at Hu Siyuan's workstation, where she was whispering closely with Director Lin. Before leaving work, Director Lin suddenly called a department meeting to announce adjustments in the division of labor for the Vera project. Considering the importance of the project, I have decided to personally supervise Group A, he said, scanning the conference room and pausing his gaze on me for a moment. Song Minjing will be responsible for market data analysis, and Hu Siyuan will handle client communication and the final presentation. I clenched my fists. This meant that my work results would be reported by Hu Siyuan, allowing her to steal all the credit just like in my previous life. Even worse, client communication is the easiest area to manipulate. She could easily deliberately convey incorrect information, making the materials I prepared completely mismatched. Any problems? Director Lin looked at me provocatively. No, I replied calmly. As long as the division of labor is clear and responsibilities are well defined, it's fine. After the meeting, I deliberately left last and, sure enough, overheard Hu Siyuan and Director Lin's conversation around the corner outside the conference room. She went too far today. Hu Siyuan said with a sob in her voice. Don't worry, she won't be able to keep this up for long. Director Lin's voice was low and suggestive. Once the project is over, give her the lowest performance rating, and she'll naturally be let go. But I can't wait. She embarrassed me in front of everyone today. Darling, be patient. It's too obvious to move against her now. Footsteps approached, and I quickly slipped into the nearby print room, through the frosted glass. I saw Director Lin holding Hu Siyuan by the waist as they walked toward the elevator, his hand clearly sliding downward restlessly. I captured this blurry but recognizable scene, my heart racing. Zhang Yida was right. Director Lin was more than just a department head, and Hu Siyuan was clearly more than just his subordinate. Back home, I added today's findings to the evidence file. Surveillance screenshots of the remote control incident, the ambiguous recording of Director Lin and Hu Siyuan, and emails about project task adjustments. Each piece was marked with the time and location, forming an increasingly clear chain of evidence. The phone vibrated. A message from Mom. Yingying, your dad bought a lot of shrimp today, just waiting for you to come home this weekend. I'll definitely be back, I replied, adding, how's Dad's blood pressure lately? A bit high, but he's taking his medicine on time. Don't worry. Putting down the phone, I opened my computer and searched for Lin Ziyuan, Vice President. The first search result is the company's official website's executive introduction. Lin Ziyuan, Group Vice President, in charge of human resources and finance. The man in the photo is in his 50s and bears some resemblance to Director Lin. No wonder, a department head dares to blatantly cover up workplace bullying. It turns out there's such a powerful backer behind it. I pulled out the company directory and noted down the vice president's email address. It's not yet time to use this card, but we must be prepared. 2 hours before the Vera project review meeting, I repeatedly checked the presentation files on my USB drive. In my previous life, on this very day, Hu Siyuan secretly altered the key data in my PowerPoint, causing me to make a complete fool of myself in front of all the senior executives and nearly costing me my job. Minjing, is your part ready? Hu Siyuan suddenly appeared beside my workstation, her smile so sweet it was nauseating. All set. I patted the USB drive in my pocket. 3 backups. A shadow flickered in her eyes, but she quickly smiled again. Perfect. I just got word that the review meeting has been moved to the large conference room. We'll need the projector. So send me the file. I'll go set up the equipment in advance. Here it comes. The exact same play as in my past life. I pretended to think for a moment. No need to trouble you. I'll go and debug it myself. This won't do. Her voice suddenly rose, then quickly lowered. I mean, Director Lin assigned me to handle the conference affairs. That's the division of labor. I calmly took a sealed envelope from the drawer. Perfect timing. This is the printed version of the final PPT. Could you please take it to the meeting room and place it on each judge's seat? Hu Siyuan was stunned, clearly not expecting this move. She hesitated as she took the envelope. Printed version. Exactly. It's more professional. I smiled. After all, Vera is an established company and prefers traditional methods. I'll bring the electronic version myself. Her fingers gripping the envelope turned slightly pale, and she forced a smile before nodding and leaving. I know she must be frantically tearing open envelopes in the women's restroom right now, trying to find out what I reported. Unfortunately, she won't realize that the envelope only contains the project background introduction. The real core data and strategic analysis were never included. Half an hour before the review meeting, I arrived at the conference room early. Hu Siyuan was anxiously fiddling with the projector and was visibly startled when she saw me come in. Is the equipment all set up? I asked nonchalantly. All set, she said, pointing to the connected laptop. Just copy the files here. I glanced at my watch. It's still early. We can copy them when the judges arrive. Her eyes darted around uneasily. What if something goes wrong at the last minute? It's better to prepare in advance. That makes sense. I nodded, took out the USB drive, and plugged it into the computer, catching a glimpse of Hu Siyuan nervously leaning in from the corner of my eye. I deliberately clicked on the wrong folder and opened a few irrelevant pictures. Isn't this it? She couldn't help but ask. Oh, my mistake. I closed the pictures, found the correct PPT file, but hesitated to open it. Siyuan, could you pour me a glass of water? I'm a bit nervous." She gritted her teeth and quickly walked out of the meeting room. I immediately pulled out the USB drive, replaced it with another one that looked exactly the same, copied the real report file into the computer, and then quickly put the computer to sleep. When Hu Siyuan came back with the water, I was leisurely playing on my phone. "Did you copy the file?" she asked urgently. "Yeah, everything's ready." I took the water glass, pretending not to notice her eager eyes checking the computer. The judges began to enter one after another. Director Lin walked in dressed in a suit and gave Hu Siyuan a meaningful look. I lowered my head and took a sip of water to hide the cold smile at the corner of my mouth. After the executives of the Vera Group took their seats, the review meeting officially began. Hu Siyuan, as the client liaison officer, spoke first, but his remarks were empty and full of generalities. The judges nodded politely, but their interest was clearly lacking. "Next, please welcome Song Minjing, the market analysis officer, to deliver her report," Director Lin announced, his eyes sparkling with anticipation as he waited for me to make a fool of myself. I stood up, walked to the computer, woke the screen, and clicked to open the PowerPoint file. The large screen immediately displayed the report I had meticulously prepared: complete data analysis, clear market positioning, and feasible promotion strategies. Director Lin's expression froze. Hu Siyuan's face turned pale as she stared at the screen in disbelief. "According to our research, Vera Group still has a 30% growth potential in market share in second and third-tier cities," I explained smoothly, occasionally citing specific data. Vera's marketing director nodded repeatedly, even taking out her phone to snap a few photos of the PowerPoint slides. This was the complete opposite of the scene in my previous life. Back then, I was questioned on the spot for data errors, and my competence was doubted. "Ms. Song's analysis is very professional," the CEO of Vera commented during the QA session. "Especially this differentiated competition strategy. It's exactly what we need." Director Lin forced a faint smile. "Song Minjing is indeed an outstanding employee in our department." After the meeting, the Vera executives took the initiative to exchange business cards with me. Hu Siyuan stood in the corner, her eyes filled with resentment. After the last judge left, she rushed up to me. "You tricked me," she growled in a low voice. I pretended to be confused. "What do you mean? You clearly, that document." She was so angry she couldn't speak coherently. "Oh. You mean the report document?" I feigned sudden realization. "I updated another version last night and might have forgotten to tell you. Sorry about that." She gritted her teeth and said, "You think you've won just like that? Just wait and see." Director Lin walked over, frowning as he looked at us. "What's going on?" "Nothing, Director Lin," I smiled. "Siyuan has some differing opinions about my report." He shot me a warning glare, then pulled Hu Siyuan away. I was tidying up the materials when I noticed Zhang Yida standing at the entrance of the meeting room. "Brilliant performance," he whispered, handing me a USB drive. "You might need this." Back at my desk, I inserted the USB drive. Inside was a surveillance video. At 3 in the morning, Hu Siyuan sneaked into the office and did something on my computer. Then, this morning, she arrived at the company an hour early, attempting to tamper with the files on my USB drive. I clenched my fists. Although I had anticipated it, seeing the evidence with my own eyes still filled me with rage. What have I done wrong to deserve her deliberate and calculated efforts to frame me? My phone vibrated with a message from my mom. "Yingying, your dad went for a checkup today. The doctor said his blood pressure is under control, so you can come home this weekend without worry." "That's great, I'll be back first thing Saturday morning." I quickly replied and added, "Tell Dad not to overwork himself. I'll cook when I get back." Putting down my phone, I noticed that Hu Siyuan's workstation was empty. In the break room, I could hear her laughing and chatting with a few colleagues. I picked up my cup and walked over, only to hear her slandering me at the door. Putting on a professional front, but actually just copying solutions from the internet. She was talking nonsense. I saw her sneaking around in the office last night. No idea what she was up to. I strode into the break room, and the group immediately fell silent. I calmly filled my cup with water, then pulled a small bottle from my pocket and dripped a few drops of colorless liquid into Hu Siyuan's cup. "What are you doing?" she shrieked, stepping back. "Vitamin drink." I shook the bottle. "You've been looking pale lately. Thought you could use some extra nutrition. Who wants your stuff?" She grabbed the cup and wanted to pour it out. "Suit yourself." I shrugged. "But this is imported. A bottle costs over 500. Hearing the price, her hand paused. A few colleagues nearby looked curiously at the exquisite little bottle. "Really?" someone asked. "Of course it's true," I made up on the spot. "It contains ginseng essence and rare berry extracts. with top-notch antioxidant effects. Hu Siyuan looked at the cup suspiciously, but in the end, she didn't pour it out. However, she didn't dare to drink it either, and hurriedly left with the cup in hand. I held back my laughter. It was just ordinary vitamin water with a few drops of lemon juice added, but I know with her suspicious nature, she'll be on edge all day. In the afternoon, the company suddenly notified all department heads to attend a meeting. Director Lin left in a hurry. Looking rather grim, the office was buzzing with speculation, with some saying they heard words like audit and investigation. Zhang Yida happened to pass by my workstation and pretended to drop a pen. As he bent down to pick it up, he whispered, "The finance department discovered someone embezzling company funds, and the amount is not small." My heart skipped a beat. Is it related to our department? Not clear on the specifics yet. He quickly stood up. But someone has been frequently entering Director Lin's office outside of working hours. After he left, I fell into deep thought. In my previous life, after I died, did the company also experience similar incidents between Hu Siyuan and Director Lin? Besides their improper relationship, was there also any financial exchange? At the end of the workday, I deliberately left last. As I passed by Hu Siyuan's workstation, I noticed her drawer wasn't fully closed, revealing a corner of familiar packaging. It was that sunscreen mixed with itching powder. It seems she hasn't given up on this trick yet. I quietly wrapped my hand with a tissue and pulled open the drawer. Inside, there wasn't just the sunscreen, but also several small paper packets with hastily scribbled words like fast-acting and extra strength. I quickly took photos of this evidence with my phone, then gently closed the drawer. What are these powders? Laxatives? Or something more dangerous? In my past life, I only experienced her pranks, but what if she actually had more malicious plans? Footsteps echoed in the hallway, and I hurried back to my desk, pretending to tidy up. Hu Siyuan and Director Lin walked into the office together, speaking in low voices, their expressions tense. I don't know who reported it, but the audit team will arrive tomorrow, Director Lin whispered, his voice barely audible. Could it be her? Hu Siyuan gestured in my direction. I pretended not to hear, focusing intently on tidying my desk. Impossible, she doesn't have that authority, Director Lin sneered, unless someone from the tech department helped her. My heart raced. Were they talking about me? What role did Zhang Yida play in this matter? Song Minjing. Director Lin suddenly raised his voice. Haven't you left yet? Leaving right away. I picked up my bag and nodded politely as I passed by them. The moment the elevator doors closed, I saw Director Lin pulling Hu Siyuan hurriedly into his office and shutting the door. Back home, I added today's findings to the evidence file, the surveillance video of Hu Siyuan tampering with documents, photos of suspicious powder in her drawer, and the financial issues revealed by Zhang Yida. The clues are piling up, but the puzzle is still incomplete. My phone suddenly lit up with a message from Zhang Yida. Don't be late tomorrow. The audit team arrives at 9. And the office will be inspected in advance. I stared at this message for a long time. Why is he helping me? How much does he know? More importantly, can I trust him? After replying with a simple, "Thank you," I turned off the bedside lamp. The moonlight outside the window was as clear as water. Tomorrow would be a crucial day. Monday morning, as soon as I entered the office, I sensed unusual glances. Several colleagues who usually greet me avoided my gaze. And someone suddenly lowered their voices as I passed by. Wang Lei quietly sent a message. Siyuan says you peeked at her private files and threatened her. Now the whole department is spreading rumors that you are mentally unstable. I clenched my phone, a classic case of the villain playing the victim. In my past life, she had used this trick before. Back then, I could only defend myself with a sense of grievance. But the more I tried to explain, the worse it made things look. Thanks for the heads up, I replied. Did she mention why I'm mentally unstable? Wang Lei's reply made me sneer. She said you have an unrequited crush on Director Lin and took your frustration out on her. I looked up towards Hu Siyuan's workstation. She was huddled among a group of colleagues, covering her mouth as she spoke, her eyes occasionally glancing in my direction. When I looked directly at her, she exaggeratedly flinched, as if frightened, drawing the attention of those around her. A clumsy performance, but effective. I walked straight to the photocopier, deliberately passing by them. The conversation immediately stopped. Good morning, everyone, I greeted with a smile, my gaze falling on Hu Siyuan. Siyuan, you look great today. Did you have a good rest over the weekend? She didn't expect me to be so calm and was momentarily at a loss for words. It was okay, that's good, I said meaningfully. After all, the audit team showed up suddenly last Friday. And I was worried you were under too much pressure. Her face instantly turned pale. Colleagues around exchanged puzzled glances. What audit team? Someone asked. I feigned surprise. You didn't know. The company is investigating some irregular financial practices. I deliberately looked at Hu Siyuan. I heard it involves several departments. After saying that, I turned and left, leaving a wave of whispers behind me. Let the rumors fly for a while. During the lunch break, the office was mostly empty. After confirming that neither Hu Siyuan nor Director Lin was around, I quietly walked over to her workstation. Her computer was password protected, but that didn't stump me. In a previous life, after a certain prank, she had proudly entered her password in front of me, saying, only a fool would use their birthday as a password. I entered her birthday, and the screen unlocked. Among the cluttered icons on the desktop, a folder named Pet Videos caught my attention. My intuition told me something was off. I opened the folder and nearly vomited. Inside were dozens of videos of animal abuse, some even filmed by her. In the footage, her hands were torturing kittens and puppies, with her signature giggling laughter in the background. My hands began to tremble. In my previous life, I only knew she liked to play pranks. But I never imagined her mind was twisted to this extent. No wonder her jokes grew increasingly cruel. Quickly copying the video to a USB drive, I continued my search. Another encrypted folder was named Game Records, with the password hint being My Happy Times. I tried entering several possible combinations, but none of them worked. Just as I was about to give up, I glanced at the dates marked on the calendar on her desk. All of them were days when someone at the company had taken sick leave or suddenly resigned. A sudden inspiration struck me, and I entered happy_time. The folder opened. Inside were detailed Excel spreadsheets, recording her pranks on each target, the dates, methods, the victims' reactions, and even ratings and improvement suggestions. My name appears at the very top, and the level of detail in the records is downright chilling. The most recent entry was written yesterday. Plan A failed, vitamin water not consumed, preparing for Plan B, the outing. This time, I must make sure she spends a few days in the hospital. Rating, pending, an outing. Does the company have any outing plans recently? Just as I was about to continue reading, footsteps sounded outside the door. I quickly exited, locked the screen, and had just returned to my workstation when Hu Siyuan walked in. She looked at me suspiciously, then at her computer. Did you touch my computer? Why would I touch your computer? I retorted. Is there something you don't want others to see? Her expression changed, and she quickly walked over to the computer to check. I pretended to focus on my work, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw her sigh in relief. Clearly, she hadn't discovered that I had copied the files. Before leaving work, the company suddenly sent a group email. This Friday, we will organize an outdoor team building activity at Ling Forest Park, and all employees must attend. My blood instantly ran cold. Ling, the place where I suffered heatstroke and fell unconscious in my previous life. Even the date is only 3 days off. This is no coincidence. Scared, Hu Siyuan's voice sounded from behind. I turned around to find her leaning against the doorframe, a cat and mouse smile playing on her face. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, forcing a calm tone. Chingsong Ridge. She walked in, locking the door of the tea room behind her. I heard the scenery there is beautiful, but it gets especially hot in the summer, and it's easy to get heatstroke. I looked straight into her eyes. I won't fall for it this time. Fall for what? She blinked innocently. It's just a fun outing among colleagues. She leaned closer, her voice dripping with sweetness. But, I suggest you bring plenty of candy and water. Oh. And don't forget sunscreen. I suddenly grabbed her wrist. I know what's on your computer, those videos, those records, enough to put you in jail. Her pupils contracted sharply, but she quickly laughed again. Just a joke. You didn't take it seriously, did you? Those were all downloaded from the internet. What can they prove, including the ones you filmed yourself? I sneered. And the detailed records of your schemes. Do you think the police would consider this a joke? Her smile finally vanished. What do you want? Very simple. I released her. Stop all the pranks and stay away from me. Otherwise, this evidence will end up in the inboxes of the company's top management and the police station. She rubbed her wrist, a trace of a viciousness I had never seen before flashing in her eyes. Fine, I promise I won't play any more pranks. She turned to open the door, looking back before leaving. But Song Minjing, have you ever thought, if I were really as bad as you say, would I give up so easily? The door closed. I stood there, suddenly feeling a bone-chilling cold. On the day of the team-building event, the weather forecast issued an orange high-temperature warning. I woke up at 4 in the morning and repeatedly checked my backpack for sports drinks, 6 packs of glucose gel, 2 boxes of Huxiangjingqi water, sunscreen spray, a portable mini fan, and various emergency medications. In my previous life, I only brought a bottle of water and a few candies. After Hu Siyuan accidentally knocked them over, I was left completely unprepared under the scorching sun. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Zhang Yida. "I'll be arriving late today. Keep your phone on." I frowned. He didn't attend the team building event in his previous life, saying he had something to do at home. "Why did you specifically notify me this time? The company's rented bus departs at 7. I chose a seat near the front for better observation. Hu Siyuan was the last to board, wearing a cool tank top and sandals, looking as if she were heading to the beach for a vacation. She glanced around the bus and deliberately chose the very last row. "Everyone fasten your seatbelts," Director Lin announced from the front of the car. "We expect to arrive at Green Pine Ridge in 2 hours. Once there, we'll split into 4 groups for an orienteering competition. The winning group will receive a prize." Orienteering. In my past life, it was clearly free time. My heart tightened. This was clearly a trap tailored for me. Halfway through the journey, Hu Siyuan suddenly walked from the back row to my side. "Minjing, can you lend me a bottle of water? I forgot to bring mine." I looked at her outstretched hand, a scene from my past life replaying before my eyes. She accidentally knocked over my water, then offered a fake apology. "By your own," I said coldly. She pouted. "How stingy." Then she deliberately raised her voice. "Minjing, you look so pale. Are you feeling unwell?" A few colleagues looked over. I couldn't be bothered with her, so I closed my eyes and pretended to doze off. We arrived at Green Pine Ridge. As I got off the bus, a wave of heat hit me, and I broke into a sweat instantly. At the entrance of the park, a sign reading, "Closed for renovation," stood in front of the small shop. "Attention, everyone," Director Lin blew his whistle. "The rules for the orienteering event are simple. Each group gets a map, find 3 checkpoints to get stamps, and the fastest team to return wins. The routes are different, so no need to worry about crowding." As he handed out the maps, I noticed Hu Siyuan lean over and say something to him, and he gave an almost imperceptible nod. "The group list is here," he said, pulling out a sheet of paper and reading. "Group A, Wang Lei, Li Jing. Group F, Song Minjing, Hu Siyuan." I looked up sharply. In my past life, we had free activities, but this time we were being forced into groups, and only the 2 of us in a group. Hu Siyuan bounced over. "What a coincidence, Minjing, we're in the same group." "Not a coincidence." I looked directly at Director Lin. "I request to change groups. Group assignments are random and cannot be changed." Director Lin waved impatiently. "Don't waste everyone's time." The other groups had already set off. Hu Siyuan waved the map. "Let's go, Minjing, let's aim for first place." The map shows we need to take the western route, passing through 3 checkpoints before returning to the starting point. I carefully studied the route and noticed that one section was an exposed mountain path, exactly where I had suffered heatstroke in my previous life. "This way is closer. Let's take the shortcut." Just after entering the park, Hu Siyuan pointed to a side path and said, "This path isn't on the map." I stood still. "Only locals know this shortcut," she said enthusiastically, pulling my arm. "I took it last time. It saves half an hour." I shook off her hand. "You go if you want, I'll follow the map." Her smile froze. "What do you mean? You don't trust me?" "Exactly, I don't trust you," I said bluntly. "Who knows where that path leads?" Her face darkened. "Suit yourself." Then she strode toward the official route. I kept my distance, following behind, occasionally replenishing my fluids and electrolytes. The first checkpoint went smoothly, and the staff stamped our papers, but by the second checkpoint, things started to feel off. The map clearly shows this road." Hu Siyuan stood at a fork in the path, flipping through the map in confusion. I leaned in to look and saw that the map indeed indicated going straight, but the actual road conditions required a left turn. In her previous life, she had also used this trick to lead me down the wrong path. "Wait here, I'll go ahead and scout the way," she volunteered. "No need, let's go together." I wasn't going to let her out of my sight. Finally, we decided to turn left. After walking for about 10 minutes, the road became narrower and the vegetation grew denser. I stopped in my tracks. "This isn't right. This isn't the way to the checkpoint." "Oops, I might have taken the wrong turn," Hu Siyuan said without a hint of apology. "Should we go back the way we came?" I glanced at my phone. No signal. The temperature was rising steadily, and I had already drunk half of my water. In my past life, it was right here that she deliberately stalled until I had a hypoglycemic episode. Keep going forward. I decided to go against the grain. We can always find our way back. She clearly hesitated for a moment, but there might not be a way ahead. Then just follow me back the way we came. I turned around, ready to retrace our steps. Wait, she quickly stopped me. Actually, I know there's a pavilion nearby. How about we rest for a bit? You don't look too well. I am indeed starting to feel dizzy, but not because of weakness. It's because this scene is too similar to my past life. I forcefully suppress my panic and take out glucose gel to replenish my energy. No need, let's keep going. After walking for another half hour, we were completely lost. The sun is blazing, and I've already used up most of my sunscreen spray. Hu Siyuan also looks exhausted, but there's a strange glint in her eyes. Minjing, are you okay? She asks insincerely. Your face is so red. I do feel unwell, but it's much better than in my previous life. Adequate preparation has allowed me to hold on for at least a few more hours. We need to call for help. I took out the whistle. Don't bother. No one can hear us in this place. She suddenly changed her tone, her smile turning sinister. To be honest, Song Minjing, I'm really curious how long you can hold out today. I stopped whistling and looked straight at her, finally dropping the act. What act? She tilted her head. It's your own poor stamina that's making you unable to walk. What does that have to do with me? She pulled out her phone. Come on, smile. I'm going to take a picture and post it on my social media. My best friend has such poor stamina. She gets out of breath after just a few steps. Hilarious. I suddenly knocked her phone away. Enough. I know you deliberately took the wrong path, just like in the previous life. She was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. Oh my God, you really are mentally unstable. I realized I had let it slip, but it was too late. She was as excited as if she had discovered a new continent. I'm going to tell the whole company you're crazy. Who would believe the words of a madman? Just then, I heard a whistle in the distance. Hu Siyuan's expression changed. Who's there? Song Minjing, a male voice called out. It's Zhang Yida. How did he find us? Hu Siyuan quickly picked up her phone. We're here. Help, Minjing has fainted, she screamed. I stared in astonishment as she instantly switched into the panicked victim mode. Footsteps approached, and Zhang Yida, along with 2 park rangers, appeared at the end of the path. What's going on? The ranger asked. My friend has heatstroke, Hu Siyuan said with a sob in her voice. She suddenly started rambling about past lives and the present. Zhang Yida quickly walked over and handed me a bottle of ice water. Have some water. I gratefully accepted it, noticing that he was carrying a professional first aid kit. You've strayed too far from the designated route. A staff member frowned. That's very dangerous. It's my fault, Hu Siyuan said first. I wanted to take a shortcut and ended up getting lost. Minjing isn't feeling well. We need to get her to the hospital quickly. She was acting, but I really needed a break. Under the administrator's guidance, we quickly returned to the main road. Hu Siyuan was taking care of me the whole way, with acting skills worthy of an Oscar. Back at the meeting point, Director Lin anxiously approached. Why did it take so long? The other groups finished an hour ago. Minjing had heatstroke, Hu Siyuan said with a worried expression. She almost fainted on the road and said a lot of strange things. Director Lin looked at me, a flicker of calculation in his eyes. That's serious. Should we take you to the hospital? No need. I straightened up. I'm fine, just a bit dehydrated. But you just said. Hu Siyuan started to say something, but Zhang Yida cut her off. I'll take her back to rest. His tone brooked no argument. The company bus has already left. I drove here. Director Lin seemed to want to object, but the administrator also suggested I rest as soon as possible, so he had no choice but to give up. Zhang Yida's car was a black SUV with the air conditioning turned up high. As soon as I got in, I slumped into the seat, trembling all over. It's okay now, he said briefly, handing me a nice towel. Put it on your neck. After the car had driven a distance, I finally calmed down. Thank you. How did you find us? GPS. He pointed at my phone. I installed a tracking program on your phone yesterday, just in case. I stared at him in shock. You? Why? Because I knew what she would do. His tone was calm. I checked her internet history. The most frequent searches were about how to create the perfect accident and symptoms of heatstroke. A chill ran through my body. She wanted to kill me, not sure, but she does have a morbid obsession with hurting you. Zhang Yida glanced at me. What's this about a past life you mentioned? I fell silent. Who would believe in something like reincarnation? Forget it. it's fine if you don't want to talk about it. Surprisingly, he didn't press further. What matters is that you're safe now. No, it's not safe yet. I shook my head. As long as she remains in the company, she will continue to harm others. Zhang Yida's lips curled slightly. Then let's make her leave the company. He handed me a USB drive. This contains evidence of her embezzlement, as well as intimate videos of her and Director Lin. It's enough to get them both fired. I took the USB drive, my heart racing. This was the decisive evidence I needed. Why are you helping me? I asked this question again. This time, he finally gave a complete answer. Because of my sister, when she first graduated. She also encountered such colleagues. She wasn't as strong as you and ended up taking her own life. His voice was very calm, but his knuckles turned white as he gripped the steering wheel. I didn't know what to say, so I could only gently hold his arm. We drove back to the city in silence like this. When I got home, I opened the USB drive. The evidence inside was undeniable. Hu Siyuan had forged reimbursement forms and embezzled project funds, with amounts sufficient to constitute a criminal offense. The video clearly recorded her intimate behavior with Director Lin in the office, as well as their conversation about how to cover up the financial issues. The most chilling part was a folder named Game Upgrade, which detailed plans for the ultimate prank against me. It matched the circumstances of my death in my previous life exactly, luring me into acting alone, delaying until I lost consciousness, and then pretending to be innocent. She wasn't playing a prank, she was committing murder. Trembling, I gathered all the evidence, backed it up to the cloud, and then wrote a long email to the HR director and the company CEO, setting it to be sent at a scheduled time. If I don't cancel it by 3 p.m. tomorrow, the email will be sent automatically. After doing all this, I collapsed onto the bed, utterly exhausted. The final step of revenge is ready. But why do I not feel the anticipated thrill outside the window? The sunset is as red as blood. Tomorrow will be Hu Siyuan's day of judgment. Early the next morning, the atmosphere in the company was eerie. The receptionist told me that the HR director wanted to see me, while Hu Siyuan and Director Lin had not yet arrived. In the HR office, the stern middle-aged female director asked me to sit down. Song. Someone anonymously sent some disturbing materials involving you and your colleague Hu Siyuan. My heart raced. What materials? Some videos and financial records. She adjusted her glasses. First, I want to confirm your safety. The materials indicate, Miss Hu may pose a threat to you, so Zhang Yida had already taken action. I took a deep breath. Yes, over the past few months, Hu Siyuan has been harming me under the guise of pranks, from swapping candies at the beginning to deliberately leading me astray during the team-building activity yesterday. Do you have evidence of these incidents? I took out my phone and played the video and prank records I had copied from Hu Siyuan's computer. The HR director's expression grew increasingly grim. This has gone beyond workplace bullying, she said seriously. We need to immediately. The door suddenly swung open, and Director Lin stormed in angrily. Director Li, I heard you're investigating my department. He clearly froze when he saw me, then sneered. Are you up to your tricks again, Director Lin? Please control your emotions. The HR director stood up. We are dealing with a serious case of workplace violence. Nonsense. Director Lin slammed the table. Siyuan is the kindest girl. Everyone in the company likes her. It's this Song Minjing. She's mentally unstable and has been causing trouble for Siyuan all along. Is that so? I calmly took out a USB drive. Then please take a look at this. The HR director inserted a USB drive into the computer and played the intimate video of Hu Siyuan and Director Lin, along with the recording of their discussion about embezzling company funds. Director Lin's face instantly turned pale. This is fake, he stammered, his voice trembling. The technical department can verify its authenticity, the HR director said coldly. Director Lin, you are hereby suspended pending investigation. As for Hu Siyuan, she didn't come to work today. Director Lin suddenly interjected. She called in sick. I exchanged a glance with the HR director. My intuition told me that Hu Siyuan wouldn't give up so easily. Back in the office, everyone looked at me with strange eyes. Wang Lei quietly told me that the news of Director Lin's suspension had already spread, and everyone was speculating about the reason. At noon, I received a text message from an unfamiliar number. If you want to save your parents, keep quiet. They're at Building 3, Unit 502 in Sunshine Community, right? My blood ran cold instantly. Mom and Dad. I immediately dialed the home phone, but no one answered. I tried my mom's cell phone next. It was turned off. I grabbed my bag and rushed out, bumping into Zhang Yida at the elevator entrance. What's wrong? he grabbed my trembling shoulders. Who Si-Yuan, my parents. I incoherently showed him the text message. His face suddenly changed. I'll drive you there. I kept trying to contact my parents the whole way, but all attempts failed. Zhang Yida ran 3 red lights and reached my residential complex in just 20 minutes, in front of Unit 502, Building 3. I trembled as I took out my keys, only to find the door slightly ajar. Pushing it open, I saw the room in complete disarray, the coffee table overturned, teacups shattered all over the floor, and my father's reading glasses broken in half, lying on the ground. Dad, Mom, I searched every room, but no one was there. Zhang Yida examined the scene, no signs of violence. They might have left in a hurry. Look at this. He pointed at the door lock. There are no signs of forced entry, which means they opened the door themselves and let the perpetrator in. Murderer, that word makes my legs go weak. Images of my parents' overwhelming grief after my death in my previous life flash before my eyes. If my revenge this time ends up harming them, my phone suddenly rings. It's a video call request. When I answer, Hu Si-Yuan's face appears on the screen, with what seems to be an abandoned factory in the background. Minjing, would you like to see your dear parents? She asked sweetly. Then the camera turned. My parents were tied to chairs, their mouths sealed with tape, their eyes filled with fear. You're insane, I screamed. Let them go. Don't be nervous, I just invited them over as guests. She laughed. After all, we've been such good friends for so long, and I haven't met your parents yet. What do you want? I forced myself to calm down. It's simple. First, withdraw all accusations against me. Second, publicly admit that you fabricated evidence to frame me and Director Lin. Third, her smile widened, resign immediately and leave this city. Zhang Yida stood behind me, gently pressing my shoulder. I understood his meaning. To buy time, I need time to consider. I tried to keep my voice steady. 10 minutes, she said curtly, no extensions. Oh, and don't even think about calling the police, or else. She pulled out a fruit knife and waved it in front of my mother's face. The video cut off. I slumped onto the sofa, my vision blurred by tears. I've already located her position, Zhang Yida suddenly said. The signal is coming from the abandoned chemical plant in the east of the city. The police will be here in 5 minutes. I stared at him in shock. When did you call the police? I reported it as soon as I saw the text message, he said, checking his phone. I have friends in the SWAT team, and they knew it was urgent. We immediately drove to the chemical plant. On the way, Zhang Yida told me that the police had been monitoring Hu Si-Yuan for some time. She was suspected of multiple animal abuse and financial fraud cases, but they lacked sufficient evidence. Today, with her kidnapping and extortion, there's enough to arrest her. He said. When we arrived at the chemical plant, the area was already surrounded by police cars. An officer informed us that the hostage had been safely rescued, and the suspect had fallen down the stairs while trying to escape, sustaining serious injuries and being taken to the hospital by the ambulance. I saw my parents, still shaken. My mother hugged me and cried loudly, while my father kept asking who that crazy girl was. It's okay now, it's all over, I comforted them. Tears streaming uncontrollably, an officer came over to take our statements. I truthfully recounted everything, including Hu Si-Yuan's long history of malicious behavior. Zhang Yida provided crucial video evidence. She may face multiple charges such as kidnapping, extortion, and intentional assault, the officer told us. Coupled with the previous financial issues, she's definitely going to prison. By the time I left the police station, it was already dark. I took my parents home, promising to move back in for a while starting tomorrow. Zhang Yida stayed with us the whole time, and when we parted, my father even shook his hand repeatedly, thanking him. See you at the company tomorrow, he said briefly as we said goodbye. Back home, I cancelled the scheduled email but sent all the evidence to the police and the company's senior management. After finishing all that, I collapsed onto the bed, exhausted yet unable to sleep. The person who had caused my death in my previous life had finally been punished, but why did I feel so empty inside? The fleeting pleasure of revenge quickly fades, leaving behind only endless exhaustion and relief. Yes, relief, because I know that from now on, no innocent person will ever fall victim to Hu Si-Yuan again. Outside the window, a new moon rises. The long nightmare has finally come to an end. The Hu Si-Yuan kidnapping case caused a huge uproar within the company. During the police investigation, more incriminating evidence was discovered, videos of animal abuse on her computer, detailed plans for tormenting others, evidence of embezzlement, and even search records for how to kill without being caught. Director Lin was also implicated. not only because of his inappropriate relationship with Hu Siyuan but also because he was an accomplice in the financial fraud. The company's vice president was also under investigation, leading to a major reshuffle of the entire management team. As the whistleblower, I was protected by the company, and HR specifically arranged psychological counseling for me. Zhang Yida was promoted to the position of Information Security Director for providing key evidence. At the all-staff meeting a month later, the new CEO publicly announced the handling of Hu Siyuan and Director Lin. Immediate dismissal and legal accountability. The meeting room erupted in enthusiastic applause. Meanwhile, the company has decided to establish a special task force against workplace bullying, to be directly managed by HR, the CEO said solemnly. I want to especially thank Ms. Song Minjing for her courage. If she hadn't stepped forward, this toxic issue might still be harming our team. After the meeting, colleagues came over one after another to express their support and apologies. Wang Lei even bowed and apologized for having doubted me. I calmly accepted everything, understanding in my heart that most people were just going with the flow. When leaving work, Zhang Yida was waiting for me at the elevator entrance. I heard Hu Siyuan is appearing in court today. I nodded. The police told me that besides kidnapping and extortion, she was also charged with animal abuse and embezzlement, and would face at least 7 years in prison. Director Lin is also facing criminal charges for misappropriating public funds. Did you attend the trial? I asked. For a while. He adjusted his glasses. When she saw me, her eyes looked like they could kill. We walked out of the building side by side. The setting sun stretched our shadows long. Do you regret it? He suddenly asked. I thought about it. No regrets, but if I could do it over, I would have stepped forward sooner, instead of waiting until she threatened my family. He nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes I wonder, if my sister had met someone like you back then. You've already done a lot for her, I said softly. Thank you for saving my parents. Likewise, he said with a rare smile. If it weren't for you, that cancer in the company would still be there. We said goodbye at the crossroads. On my way home, I passed by a pet store and suddenly remembered the abuse videos in Hu Siyuan's computer. I walked in and adopted a golden retriever that had been abused. It was blind in its right eye, reportedly stabbed by its previous owner with a sharp object. On the way home with the dog, my phone rang. It's a photo from Mom. She and Dad are drinking tea on the newly renovated balcony, smiling brightly. The green light turns on, and I cross the street holding the dog leash. A gentle breeze blows by, carrying the last bit of summer heat. Autumn is almost here, and my new life is just beginning. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.